Okay. Um, this is going to be a little bit raw, but I figured I'd go ahead and talk about this now since I just got back from a early live, or an early screening of Big George Foreman. So that's the movie I just saw, and it doesn't actually come out until April 28th, as you can see. Um, but I was able to see an early screening and just for people to kind of give feedback on it and you know you know see if there's any changes they want to make or whatever, because it's actually the movie was actually still pretty early in pretty early in development, and to a certain degree where there were some visual effects missing and different things like that. So this is just some of the promotional material that we got. Your little bag, some pens. Can you see that? Ooh, it's all backwards. Anyway, little keychain here with a boxing glove on it, and so on and so forth. Oh yeah, you could do this too to go and get more information about the movie. All right, exclusively in theaters, April 28th. So, anyway, obviously, to no one's surprise, Big George Foreman is about George Foreman. um, and, something that is interesting, I guess, is that obviously probably a lot of people know George Foreman as the boxer or George Foreman as the grill guy. But not very many people know George Foreman as the pastor. So apparently he's been pastoring a church for like literally like 40 years or more um, in Houston. And I believe he still does that. And it's an interesting story about his life and how he became who he is, became a boxer, and his life growing up. And so obviously there's a lot of those normal um, coming up stories of athletes that might expect, and tropes in this movie. But a different aspect of that is just how he was able to uh, find uh, God through all that, and how that came about, and different things that happened in his life that led him to becoming a Christian, becoming a pastor, taking his uh, faith seriously. And you know one of the ways that the movie puts it is how he decided to fight for his faith. So overall it was a pretty good movie. I thought had a lot of interesting things about it. Again, George Foreman was boxing before I was even born. So there are a lot of things that if you don't, know the history, or you're not really into boxing, you may not know about George Foreman, or the way that certain things went with his fights, or who he fought, when he fought, different things like that. So some of the things that I was familiar with was that I was familiar with that he fought Muhammad Ali, but I don't remember who won, because I wasn't there. And even when he was fighting Muhammad Ali, I'm pretty sure that was way before I was even born. Um, and ultimately at the ground, from the ground up, it's about a guy who kind of had a lot of maybe pent up anger, channeled that through um, boxing, and then how he felt like that wasn't enough, and that he really needed to give his life to the Lord, and how that changed him and changed some of the things that he um, believed, did, ways he acted, things of that nature. Um, so yeah, I would say overall it was a pretty good movie. There was a few, there's a lot of different things that you're going to look at it. So if you're looking at it from a pure entertainment perspective, it was pretty entertaining. Whereas some people for a Christian movie are going to be looking at it from, is it a good Christian movie that you feel like the gospel message was presented, and that people could watch the movie and not be like, either turned off by it, but at the same time be witnessed to from the content of the movie. So I would say for entertainment value, and they have like little questionnaires, and actually I can pull that out. I took a picture of mine because at the end of the movie you do a questionnaire type thing, and I took a picture of mine, and so I can kind of go through that here with you real quick. So one of those questions that they ask you is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate? Uh, so it says, as entertainment, I would give Big George Foreman what on a scale from 1 to 10? I gave it an 8, and as an outreach tool, I gave it a 6. Yeah, 6. So again, I felt like the Christian messaging of the film came very late in the film, but it was good. It was there. It was fairly strong. But I think it could have been stronger, and I think it could have been, maybe I would have liked to know a little bit more about George Foreman, the pastor, because that's the one that I knew the least about, and maybe a little bit less focus on George Foreman, the boxer. But some of that stuff was still interesting as well because, again, as being as how long ago it was, I don't know some of it unless I Google it. And I would still recommend it to people. It'd be a great family film to see overall, especially for teenagers and up. There are a few things in there like where some of the typical things that a sports star struggles with are presented in the movie, and some of those things he doesn't handle the best probably as well, because a lot of this happens before he's committed himself to Christ. So again, that's why I would say a little caution there. There are very few profanities, but I would say there is maybe a few profanities, or at least crass words maybe is a better word for it, because it wasn't really super like profanities. Like somebody said something, he was like getting ticked off, but he used the other word that I prefer not to use, which again is a small thing I guess for most people. But I just, again, if you're if you got kids, you don't want your kids hearing that and going with you, and then saying that word, man, I'm really peeved, and kind of just something to think about. They said crap at least a couple of times probably. There was a couple of ladies who were dressed scantily clad, I would say, but not something that they focused on, or super you know obvious, or super bad. you know so overall a good movie. There's again, there's a lot of focus on the boxing, but at the same time we're not focusing on the fighting. It's just more focusing on the history of it, and focusing on aspects of the how he got to where he was, from all the way up of even starting with the movie of being him as a child, and kind of growing up really poor, and just different aspects of that. Just trying to think if there's anything else I would say. um and again, I would say, maybe a way to sum up the movie is that he was always George Foreman seemed like he was always ready for a fight, but I think until he you know uh, accepted Jesus. He didn't know what he was fighting for, and he, learned through his acceptance of Christ as his Savior what he really wanted to be, what he really should have been fighting for in his life, and um, just how he got from there to where he started. Um, Seemed like his mother was a strong influence in his life, and some of the things that she taught him, he didn't really cling to, and maybe came back around later on and in his life as he, kind of put certain things into perspective. Um, yeah, but anyway, it was again. It comes out April 28th. Um, Big George Foreman. I'd say you should check it out and take your friends. Again, you probably might be able to take your preteen boys and whatnot. Again, you gotta navigate some of the content, to your own discretion. But overall, pretty fairly mild. Main thing is just they do touch on the aspect of him, kind of being somewhat promiscuous in his early life, and how some of that, affected him. So you will want to watch out for that. And other than that, it was pretty, not too many, I guess, problematic things in my mind. So that was good. And overall, pretty seemed like well done. Forrest Whitaker plays his boxing coach or whatever that is, or his trainer. He did a good job. And I don't even know the main actor of this movie, but I think he's probably somewhat of a newcomer, or I was unfamiliar with him. But he did a good job, and really seemed to embody the character, and seemed a lot like got it George Foreman's uh, character down well. So yeah, so check it out, Big George Foreman, April 28th. Just saw it. Super, cool. And you should give it a watch. All right.